Hello and welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO and I will say /VC podcast where we are reshaping life, leadership and business, and I'll include investing today. And I'm welcoming to the show Marie Cheong. Welcome to the show, Marie.
Hi, V. Thank you very much for having me.
No, thank you. We've already chatted. Like we were meant to start, 15 minutes ago, and here you and I are like having a good old chit chat. It feels like we were doing a pre-pod before the pod, and it's so lovely to have you on this show. And I'm very thrilled to be talking to you today. I'm going to get straight on into it. You're based in Singapore, and you've grown up. You're born and bred in Singapore, but you have travelled all around, and in your whole growing up, you've been all around Southeast Asia. I'm going to start with first and foremost, though, you're a mum to Finn, who is now 8 years old. And when you responded to my question around what's one unique insight or lived experience when it comes to life, leadership and business, your response was so heartfelt. And it was like, oh, it kind of really did. My heart skipped a beat for a second when I read it, but I'm going to keep everyone holding on that for a second because I want to do the business side of things first, and then we'll come back to little Finn and how that shaped you. So correct me if I'm wrong with any of this, but you are the co-founder and partner at Wavemaker Impact, which is Southeast Asia's first VC-backed climate venture builder, creating 100 times 100 startups. And its companies designed to abate 1 million tons of carbon dioxide. Did I get that right?
100 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, and be $100 million revenue businesses at scale. Yeah.
I knew I'd get something wrong. I wrote down dollars and million and forgot the 2 zeros. So anyway, sorry about that. And you partner with founders across the region to build climate credible venture scale businesses in sectors like energy, efficiency, agri-food, logistics and industrial decarbonisation. Before that, you led the venture build program at NG Factory, and that was APAC, and that was essentially co-creating startups in green mobility, smart cities, and renewables. So you are pretty much a climate guru, I would say, in terms of, or a green climate guru, whatever you want to call it, but I feel like that's what you are. Coming back to your response to the question when booking in for the pod, I'm just going to read this out, and then I'm going to hand it over to you and let you tell your story. Becoming a mum to Finn, who is now 8 years old, taught me about the infinite expansiveness of love and helped me get over a lot of my fears professionally. I learned that love enables me to achieve much more than I imagined and authentically strive towards a mission bigger than myself without a fear of failure. I think I'm a good mother, but I always strive to be a better mother. Some days I fall short, but success is measured in years and decades. Climate investing and building a team and a fund are very similar, with a little smiley face. I love our mission to build a portfolio of companies that can abate 10% of the global carbon budget. We've built some interesting companies, but we strive to move faster and build bigger. Some days there are setbacks and we've definitely made mistakes, but success is measured in years and the economy and the planet that we hand over to the next generation. How beautiful. Over to you.
Wow, I wrote that. Yeah, look, I mean, I think for me, and I think actually for a lot of other people that I speak to, it's important to do something purposeful with your life. And purpose means different things for different people. But for myself, I always felt like, I've been fortunate and lucky in so many ways. Thanks to my parents, I had an incredible international education, and I got to see so much of the world. And I just thought, wow, where a lot has been given, then a lot's owed. And so a lot of, I guess, my early career was trying to figure out what do I do with my life, and then kind of a little bit being held back by myself. So I think I had a lot of, I guess fears. And, we were talking a little bit about it, like, oh no, I can't do that. Like, oh no, that's not for me. That's not for me. That's for people who, are researchers or scientists, or that's for people who are in government. And I'm not, like, who am I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it was really around the time that I had Finn, who's 8 now, that I kind of just changed my perspective a little bit. And I really focused on, what am I good at? what will people pay me for? Like, what am I actually like? What gets me out of bed? Or like, what do I find really exciting? And then the third part was kind of what does the world need?
Mm,
And so for me, I thought, okay, I was working as a consultant at the time and had started to work a little bit with early stage startups. And so I was like, okay, so, people will pay me to be a consultant, to advise on strategy. Maybe in tech, people would pay me to do kind of customer success roles. So I know I can kind of talk to people, sort of bring ideas together. What really excited me was this idea of building, like, the 0 to 1.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, right. To like start with a blank sheet of paper and say, okay, what could this be? So I knew that that was something that I was very passionate about. And then when it came to what the world needed, for me, there were three things that I thought were really important. So the first thing was actually leadership. I think the world needs a lot of leaders that kind of authentically strive to make the world a better place. I thought second, the world needs more women who feel empowered to kind of live
Meant
up to their
that.
potential. And then the third thing I thought was, well, we need to do something about the climate crisis.
Mm,
And so I just started to look for opportunities that were in the intersection of like what people would pay me for, what really excited me, and then, what I thought the world really needed. And this idea kind of popped into my head, and it was really just like this one sentence. It was like, whoa, what if I could help build ventures that decarbonize the world? And I had no idea what this meant. This idea that popped into my head predates Wavemaker Impact. It predates NG Factory. I mean, I was working for two of my best friends, like early stage startup at the time. Like it was, I thought it was so funny when you said, "Oh, you're an expert in climate." I, I've learned everything that I know about
you're an
climate
expert
in the
now.
last.
Like, I think that's the point, right? You've learned everything, but look at you. Like, you've got it's proven, like, in terms of you are. Like, but we always start somewhere where we're not an expert, but then we become an expert. Or, you know what I mean? Like, if we pursue and you had this purpose that's popped into your head, and then you're like, okay,
Yeah.
now what do I do with it?
Exactly. And I started just as we were talking before, I just started having conversations and I said, hey, like what would it look like to build companies that help decarbonize the world? And then through those conversations, I got an incredible opportunity at NG Factory working with one of my current co-founders now, Quentin Viquette. And it just like suddenly I was leading this program, helping to venture build startups in the climate tech space. And I was there to learn as much as I could about what does it take to put up a utility scale solar project? What does the green transition really need? And do you have to be an expert in this space to make a difference? What does a scalable solution here look like? And I was for just so long was just this sponge. I just wanted to learn everything I could about this space. And then I think the other incredible thing about kind of doing this exercise of trying to figure out like where I wanted to play for myself was there were opportunities that came along the way that I said no to. So one of the big tech companies offered me like a pretty good role in their customer success team. And I was like, no, it doesn't quite align with the purpose of what I want to do. And then other opportunities, like for example, when Quinton at Factory was like, hey, I'm thinking about stepping out and doing my own thing. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, I want to do the same thing. Then you just say yes, right? You just jump before
Yeah.
all of the ducks line up or you figured out how you're going to pay yourself, and then fast forward, that was almost 5 years ago now. And like fast forward to now and we raised $60 million for our first fund. We're venture building. We have 24 companies in our
Incredible.
portfolio. We've got an incredible team of venture builders that work with, incredible founders to help launch these 100 by 100 companies. And, again, we were talking before, like a 100 by 100 company is a moonshot. It is a climate unicorn.
Yes. Yeah.
It is changing industries. It is changing the way that we do business, changing the fuels that we use, changing the way that we cultivate crops like rice, which is one of the food staples for the world. And so who knows? Who knows where all of these companies will be? Of course, we hope that it will lead to, good economic returns for our LPs and economic successes for our founders. But what I love is that it it's a mission that's kind of big enough, right? Like
Yeah.
um
It's
I
a
don't know,
mission that fits your purpose. Like you came up with purpose like a long time ago by the sounds of things. And you're finally going, I don't know, call me woo, call me like, like that whole female thing, but it's like this pops into your head, and it's like you've had to go through all this, all the journey to then go, oh, there it is. And okay, this is the mission, because you can't have a purpose without a mission, right? Like the mission is, how you're going to get there. And so that's that whole, for me, it feels like it's just interconnected, and it's like, now this is what we're doing and this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah. And so I think that's linking it back to that quote, right? What I kind of said was my like kind of big experience. It's just, I think when at least when I felt this like incredible alignment with what I'm doing and the energy I put into it, like I want to learn everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if things go wrong. Like you just accept that things will go wrong.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change the ultimate purpose is something that I'm always kind of striving towards.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's kind of like I love this mission that we're on. I love what we're doing. And then some days are hard, some days are great, but that's okay because love gives you this capacity to do more than at least I thought was possible.
Yeah, and it's so true that this whole love piece, right? Like, just kind of like, back to even like, I can't do that, and like you talk around this being this sponge in learning, and a few questions are coming up for me in terms of, when you have that self-doubt and you go, I can't do that. But then this purpose kicks in, and then you're like, I want to be a sponge and I want to learn everything. And I'm throwing love in there, and you might think this is a bit random, but, like this comes back to, alignment, self-worth, love, loving ourselves, to then be giving ourselves that ability to be able like, no, I can do this. And so I will be that sponge. And I love the way you talk about love and the expansion in terms of not just in life, but how that applies into businesses as well. And especially as a woman, especially in your space. And I know the stats are quite astounding in terms of like, being like brave enough and having the courage to talk about it this way, because it's so refreshing to hear this, and more, more founders and more leaders we need to be talking like this, because that's the only way we're going to shift things and, reshape from the world we're in to this new world we're in. And especially with a purpose like yours and the mission that, Wave Maker Impact is on, it's what we need to be talking more about.
Yeah, I think so. Look, I think we face a lot of challenges in the world. I mean, climate is one of them, but even kind of this move away from sort of globalization to like very localization and sort of, oh, I've got to protect what's mine, that seems to kind of be dominating the headlines these days. I think it's all, there's a lot of fear in a lot of that.
Yeah.
Like what's being taken away from us. Whereas I think, the world needs everyone to kind of tap into the things that they love, the excitement that they have for the opportunities that are out there. And then I think, incredible things can happen. I completely understand that it doesn't sound realistic all the time. And, like even today, like I had some tough calls this morning, and I don't know that I showed up in with the same kind of enthusiasm that I'm talking to you now about it. But what I really love about this conversation is it kind of reminds me to reconnect, right? Reconnect to the thing that gives me energy, and then to try and bring that into conversations. Yeah, I think that's it's a powerful element of leadership. And I think it's an element of leadership that women have access to.
Yeah, and I think it's funny, I was going to actually ask you that, like that you can't be loving all day, every day and be up
Yes.
and have the
Yeah.
energy, right? I call it oscillating between survival and thriving mode. And, but what you called out for me is like, and sorry, you had to make some hard calls today, but that's part of, who we are, and, like at the level you're at, and in terms of you just sometimes have to make those hard calls, and nothing's ever personal. You could go away and let that energy impact you for the rest of the day, or you can choose to go, okay, that happened, I had to do it that way, so how do I get back to then just this expansion in terms of that was a situation. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think this is where we need to be able to give ourselves grace about that and go, and the ability to step out of the situation we've just been in and bring back what is, like, get that perspective. I think that's really important, and quite often we don't. And, especially women as women in leadership, we take things so personally, and we wear our heart on our sleeve. I know I do. You mean like, and so quite often we go down a different path, but it's like, no, that's okay, and I'm back here again. Like, do you find that?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's where like the parenting analogy for me comes in. Like, I don't show up every day and be like a great like present mom. There's like things that are going on that, when I'm probably on my phone more than I need to, or I don't fully listen. And sometimes, you have kind of a shit day together.
Yeah.
And then you go to bed and then you're like, oh, that was not a great day. I'm going to try to turn up and kind of show up and be better. And I think then over time, it kind of compounds, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, let me tell you a little funny thing. My puppy, he's 2, and he won't let me talk on my phone when I go walking with him. Like, that's hope, because he's bringing me
Yeah.
back to being that presence piece, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about the founders and the, I guess, the 100 times 100 startup and who you're working with. Do you share this sort of knowledge and insight with them as well? Like, is that something that you, like, from a purpose perspective, but also what you're talking about here in terms of that authenticity, the ability to get over the fears and this expansion in, like, let's just call it, love, because putting love in business, in startup, and it's kind of a little bit foreign, but it's also so new world and so required, and especially when it comes to the planet. And we need to love the planet more because, like you say, we're in a climate crisis. Mother Nature's losing her shit. She's just basically going, stop. Like, I've got some theories on COVID in terms of it was asking us to slow things down to let things regenerate, for example. But yeah, like, how do you, like, yeah, how do you, in terms of the founders and the businesses you're working with, on their hardest of hardest days, what sort of conversations are you having with them?
So first of all, I think entrepreneurs are like an incredible group of individuals. I think I once read to be an entrepreneur is to basically bet on yourself against all of the odds. And I think that is that like very few startups succeed. Like we always talk about the unicorns, but that hides like so many other startups that didn't quite get there, or even like a lot of entrepreneurs that you speak to that did get there.
Mm.
They had one or two kind of failures or missteps along the way as well. So I think founders are incredibly resilient. I think the tough days are the days when, our founders are pushing and hustling as hard as they can, and, things just aren't converting. Like one of my favorite founders is a guy called Mark, and he runs Numat, which is using bamboo, which is abundant natural resource, also incredibly good for carbon sequestration. It's a grass, so it grows much more regeneratively and abundantly than wood. And his startup takes bamboo that's grown in the Philippines and turns it into a replacement for engineered wood products.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah, and this guy, I think, has run through every single wall that I can think of to get his first plant up and operational. We were doing the math the other day, and on an annual basis, this plant has the ability of sequestering over 120 tons of CO2e per year, and that's just one plant, right? In his grand mission of what he wants to achieve. But yeah, there's days when you thought that big contract was going to land and it doesn't land. We sent his team some champagne because we thought like this big contract was so sure to come in, and then it doesn't come in, and those are hard.
Yeah.
Those are hard days. There's days where you have to make choices around conserving your runway, and that impacts people that have come on board for the
Mm.
mission that you had. We've had founders also that, love the company they're building and what they were doing, but realized for themselves that, this wasn't sustainable for them. So one of our male founders actually had a baby, and the baby had some complications. He had some family problems. His startup required a lot of travel, and he had to say, like, I love what we're building here, but I just can't, this
Do
isn't the
it.
right choice
Yeah.
for me as a person right now.
Mm.
And so those are like the hard days, right? When there's two things that you love, or there's something that you strived really hard for, and it just doesn't go the way you go the
And do you think from an entrepreneurial perspective and what you're seeing, when it comes to male versus female, are you seeing a notable difference? Like in terms of, I mean, there's some pretty crazy stats around women founders and, seeking funding, etc. But like, on a hard day, like, do you notice it more in like, is it pretty much the same? Do you see the same, what's the word I'm looking for, behaviors or patterns, or do you see a difference with a woman versus a man, or like, what are you seeing in terms of that as well?
Yeah, I mean, in our portfolio, we currently have three women founders of 24 companies in our portfolio, right? We do a lot, and Steve, another one of my co-founders who you've had on your podcast,
Yeah.
is also just such an incredible champion of women. And we're doing everything we can to try and get more women
Yeah.
founders and entrepreneurs into our pipeline. I think it's probably a top of the funnel issue, not a not a capability, not a
No.
competency, not a skills issue. We have a small sample size, and also all of our companies are very young, so it's very difficult to say, like, with any kind of statistical accuracy, the differences. But I will say a couple of things, like, don't come for me. So I think the first thing is that our women-led companies build teams really well.
Yeah.
And so all of our, like, the fastest person who found a co-founder was one of our women founders and CEOs. So again, there are also male founders in our portfolio that do a great job of building teams. So I'm not trying to distinguish,
No, you're
but
not trying to pull them apart.
yeah,
And I wasn't either. I was probably just
yeah,
I'm trying to break down what is it? Like what is causing
yeah.
this gap? Like what, like is, there's, yeah.
Yeah. But I will say that women, like our women founders, are building incredible teams,
Mm,
and so I think I think that 2 out of the 3 of our female founders at the moment, they're building companies in AI, or in the AI space, so AI x climate, right? So one of them, Malini, and her co-founder Raghav, are building a company that's using AI to reduce overproduction in the fashion industry. So 30% of all clothing produced goes straight to landfill. And that is just a forecasting, demand management challenge. And they're using AI to help address that. And another one of our founders was actually our most recent investment. So we just passed Dyson. Catherine is using AI to optimize industrial processes. So there's no difference as well in terms of like the type of companies that are
yeah,
being built,
no.
the difficulty of the tech, like it's all in there from that perspective. Um, and those are our only 2 AI companies. So, I don't know what that says either, but
Do you
maybe
think it's really interesting
women are
because
good at AI as well.
no, yeah, but do you think it just comes back to this, as a female, do you think it comes back to, well, there's a few things that are going on for me, like, it's hard to be a mom, to juggle a career, there's so many different things going on, but there's also like just this back to this self-worth piece, right? And I still think we've got a really big challenge as women who, aspire to be at the top of their game. And, like you see some men, and again, men versus women at all, but it's like they just go for it. And then there's us at times. And I know I've held myself back. You were asking me about this podcast, and I was like, at the time, and even when I spoke to people like Steve and some other people from a VC perspective that have just like you, and I've thought before the meeting or the catch up, why are they talking to me? Why would they want to talk to me? Like, you have these little things going on in your head that you're like, and then you get on a call, get an interview with them, and we're just all human to human. It's just, we're like, I don't look, the conversation I had with Steve was incredible. It's no different to the conversation I'm having with you. Obviously different perspectives, etc. But like, yeah, it's just something that we just need to, as women, break down and be like, enough's enough. Like we're good enough. We are good enough. And, we should be, I don't know, like it's just something that is, we're still so far off from getting an equal playing field. But I think we hold ourselves back a fair bit also because of our own limiting beliefs, if you like. I don't know. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, and I think there's a lot of like data around this, right? Like, even I can't remember the stat exactly, but like if a man will apply for the job if they meet like 20 or 30% of the criteria, and a woman won't apply for a job unless she hits like 70 or 85% of the criteria in the JD. And so, when I was saying like, I think our challenge with women founders is the top of the funnel, I think that's what I mean, right? It's like, okay, first there's a leap to kind of say, hey, I don't know if I meet everything here, but I think I could be good at this, and then kind of going for it. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know where it comes from, or and I'm sure there's so many things sort of from a cultural, from a societal, from a family kind of role-based responsibilities that are in there. But I think, like what I was saying about our portfolio, when it comes, like once you're in it, the challenges are exactly the same
Yeah.
for male and female founders, executing their businesses. The problem spaces that our women portfolio founders are going after are just as hard
Yeah.
as everything else. So I think that it's really possible. And then I think the other thing I would say is that I've been really fortunate that they've always been really, really strong champions and advocates for women in leadership roles. In my life, like I said, Steve's another one, but actually all of my co-founders at Wavemaker Impact are also incredible champions
Mm.
of women in leadership and in entrepreneurship. So I think those champions are out there. Um,
It's finding.
Yeah. And so I had a conversation with a friend of mine when I just launched Wavemaker Impact, and she had just become a mum and was interviewing with a couple of VC firms. She got asked a question that was kind of like, basically, as a mum, how do you think you'll be able to deal with the demands of this job, right? Which is not a question that I guess men get asked. So I also I don't want to I don't want to minimize the challenges that are out there. I think there are structural. I think there's like intentional and unintentional structural biases that exist in sectors that have traditionally been dominated by men. So I think it's really, maybe it's about finding your tribe, finding the people
Yeah.
who don't think like that. And so when we had that when she told me this, I was like, well, that makes absolutely no sense. And then she was like, oh, okay, I'm really glad you told me that, because after that one interview, I thought maybe I shouldn't interview in this space. Like maybe roles in this sector are not right. And I was like, well, no, you just had a shitty interview.
Yeah,
That's what happened. Like,
totally. Totally, totally. It comes back to what you were saying earlier, and I'm intrigued a little bit about this in terms of knowing when to say no, because quite often we'll just say yes to appease or be the people pleaser or whatever. But you said, earlier around your purpose, and it came to you, and then along the way you got offered some great opportunities. Even what we're just talking about right now, and the ability to find your tribe. I love that. Your vibe attracts your tribe also. I think that what you put out there, that attracts it also. But I think it's also then just knowing that when that is like the ability to say no, well, that's just not the right business for me, or that's not the right co-founder, or whatever it is, to be able to then go, I've just got to keep exploring. I've just got to keep being curious and being open-minded. It's not going to stop me from doing what I'm doing. In terms of your ability to say no, that must still happen to you now in business and in what you're doing. Like, you must come up against things where you're like, no, it's just not it's not going with my purpose, or it's not aligned to my values. What's your view on that?
yeah, I mean, I think it's hard in a lot, like to bring things back to first principles, and then it's so I guess. And again, I'm not saying I always do a great job of it, right? But I think it's kind of hey, why are we doing this?
Yes.
Yes, like, are we doing this because we think this is a right decision for the business right now? Are we doing this because we kind of need to survive, and this is a way to survive? So I think kind of like breaking. I guess my point is, you don't always get to choose. You don't always get to choose in things, but I think the clearer you are on why you're doing things, even if it's a suboptimal choice, kind of helps you sleep better at night, and then hopefully, put you in a position to say, oh yes, okay, I did this at this point because we had to, and now, but really my ideal is, X or Y, and then to wake up the next morning and then kind of shoot for it. So I was having a conversation earlier today with one of our portfolio companies that's raising, and they're kind of in the market, and they're kind of, what valuation do we accept? Or like, what sort of
Right.
price? Yeah. Like where should we be kind of positioning ourselves? And another board member who's on the call, I thought it said really well, kind of said, hey, the guidance that I always give our companies is you go with the type of capital, not the amount of capital. So if you've got the right mission alignment, if you've got people that understand what you're trying to do and want to help you on that mission, then sometimes that's more important than, getting the right price, or being able to say like, oh yeah, we hit this valuation and I raised this amount of money. And so I thought, okay, it's like, this is I guess another way of sort of saying like, you gotta try and understand the principles behind why you
Yeah,
make decisions.
I do love first principles thinking, and it's really interesting because that segues into exactly what you were talking about. Because a couple of final questions for you. You said success is measured in years and the economy and the planet that we hand over to the next generation, and even just what you called out from that board member. Then, like, that is truly reshaping VC from just thinking about the monetary value. What does handing over to the next generation look like for you? Like you've said, it's measured in years. Like you're talking about reshaping and redefining success right now. Do you have a view on it, or like is it just more that you're looking at it from, it's measured in years. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it will. Like, same with your moonshot. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it's a moonshot, and you are going for that moonshot, which I absolutely love. Yeah. What
Yeah.
is
So I think from a macro view on climate, there's two things. So one is that in Southeast Asia, growth is still one-to-one linked with the growth in carbon emissions. And so Southeast Asia, for example, is the fastest growing region in terms of energy growth and demand. And all of our energy comes from fossil fuels, and that isn't changing fast enough. And then if I think about like where that demand comes from, that demand comes from a growing middle class. It comes from, families in our tier 3 and tier 4 cities around the region that finally have enough kind of monthly income to start thinking about kind
yeah,
of upgrading their lives and buying things and going on their first holidays. And
amazing?
I want all of that to happen. So I want the growth. I just want to try to delink it from carbon emissions, right? Which
Mm.
means like, how can we continue to drive growth in a region that needs growth, but do it in a way that is much less extractive on our environment and much more regenerative. And that means that our sectors, like all of our sectors, need to change. The clear one is, our energy needs to move away from coal and fossil fuels to a much bigger share of renewables. It means that, like our industries need to be much more energy efficient in order to kind of grow and their production, right? I think it means that, our systems of agriculture in the region, which are very, very fragile and focused on smallholder farmers, those also need to kind of change in order for us to grow more food and be more productive in the areas that we have, and also increase the livelihoods of smallholder farmers. So it's almost like every part of our economy needs to start thinking in a more regenerative and less
Yeah,
extractive way
100%.
in order
Yeah,
for us to achieve this.
yeah.
By the way, Europe has already started to delink emissions from growth. I think China has also started to delink. So the world has started to do this. It's just not hit everywhere yet.
No. I wonder if it'll start with this new cycle with everyone's talking about the Chinese New Year that's about to kick in, and the end of this massive cycle that we've been in, like, I don't know, is it 9 or 11 years, and we're moving into this brand new cycle. I don't know. I feel like energetically there's some big shifts that are really going to start to take place. It's just my observation with the fire horse coming in here, and we're at a point where we can't keep doing the same thing, can we? And it's like you're talking about from a delinking and from a climate perspective, but just globally in terms of leadership, the economy, what we're leaving behind for the next generation and the planet. Which leads me to my final question with you. And this is a little bit of I generally ask for advice or, some words of wisdom, but this one's I'm going to play with you a little bit. So Finn, this is a conversation that you would have with Finn. So he's obviously 8, and he says to you, Mum, what does leadership look like when I'm, like, I guess in business, what would you say to him? Like, in a roundabout way, like, it's not the right way he wouldn't probably ask it like that. Mum, like, when I'm a leader, what will it look like? Or when I'm an entrepreneur, what will that look like? What would you say to him now, like at 8 years of age?
Okay, so one is I would be delighted if Finn had the presence of mind to ask a question like that. And honestly, I don't know what I would say, but I guess I think w- what I would really love for him is that he kind of knows himself. I think the to I think leadership really starts from within. So the more you're
Yes.
aware of um your emotions, the more you're aware of um you know the triggers that all of us have, the more that you're able to stop yourself from reacting reactively rather than creatively to situations. I think yeah. And then maybe, the more you're able to move with love rather than fear.
I love it.
Yeah. I think leadership doesn't have to be a big thing. I
No,
think it can
I
be,
love it.
yeah.
Lead with
Yeah.
love instead of fear. So good. Marie, thank you so much. How do we find out more about you? How do we find out more about Wavemaker?
Yeah. So you could go to our website, wavemakerimpact.com. We also, LinkedIn is our big channel. So we post updates on our portfolio companies and what we're up to all the time there.
Amazing. And I forgot to ask you about the co-founder piece, but I think we did talk a lot about, I think we've covered a lot of ground. So Marie, thank you so much. It's been a real joy talking to you, and yeah, I'm going to be watching you guys from afar and hopefully get you back on the show at some point. Maybe I'll get you and Steve on together and somebody else, and we'll have
Yeah.
a discussion. I think that'd
Get some of our founders on. Get some of our
Yeah, that'd
founders.
be really cool,
Yeah.
like, just to
Yeah.
get that's the plan for this year. Anyway, we digress, but, thank you for coming on the show, and, yeah, have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, B. I really appreciate it. It was a lovely conversation.
No, thank you.